technologically challenged, feeling somewhat 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 technologically challenged.
No idea what's going on. I've got challenged. No idea what's going on. I've got challenged. No idea what's going on. I've got challenged. No idea what's going on. I've got challenged. No idea what's going on. I've got challenged. No idea what's going on. I've got challenged. No idea what's going on. I've got challenged. No idea what's going on. I've got challenged. No idea what's going on. I've got challenged. No idea what's going on. I've got challenged. No idea what's going on. I've got challenged.
Oh, look, that seems to have stopped. Look, I don't know what's going on. I'm assuming it's all happening. I couldn't figure out why there was an echo in the Twitch one that I listened to. It's really weird. And of course now the puppy's going off his face as well. So I don't know. I don't know. It's all weird. Anyway, I'm hoping that's sorted out. Isn't it exciting listening to newbies? And I'm not really a newbie, but I am. I've not done live streams. Only started doing live streams a couple of weeks ago on the old YouTube channel, and I used the YouTube dashboard. I don't know, I'm thinking maybe I should stick to that. I'm trying Restream at the moment, just so that I can do it to 2 channels at the same time. But I'm not committed to anything at this stage other than, you know, this time of day I am going to be talking. So I'm still having troubles getting comfortable sitting. I suspect it'll be quite a while before I'm able to just sit comfortably and get on with it. So I'll need to be drinking a little bit. It's mineral water, so it looks really exciting, doesn't it? I had the weirdest experience the other day. I've been really exhausted. I've got a medical condition, and you know, sometimes the exhaustion really does overtake me. So, you know, you plan your day so that you don't get into this position where you're really exhausted. But I was sitting there with my husband and we were watching TV, and we'd had a glass of wine, and I'm starting to fall asleep and I haven't swallowed my schluck of wine. Oh my God, it's like, okay, maybe I am not awake enough to actually enjoy a glass of wine. It's, you know, a bit rough. Never mind. So what I was going to talk about today was quite simply a bit more about lawyers and what you can do if you think your lawyer's overcharging you or not doing the right thing. If you've got any complaints about your lawyer. Now, in future sessions, I'll probably talk about, you know, some of the red flags. There are red flags with your lawyer. I know that I should have picked up on them, and I didn't. And when you first sign up with your lawyer, you get a costs agreement, and in the costs agreement there's also a document attached that says, you know, your rights. Now, they have to give this to you by law. You know, it's in the rules and regulations that govern the legal profession, and in those rules and regulations it tells you, you know, if you're not satisfied, you know, and the lawyer doesn't address your concerns, you can report them and, you know, see if there's something that you can do. If you have an issue with their costs, like, you know, legal costs can be terrifyingly high, and you can't see where the value comes from. But you've got to remember, you're not really paying for the time, you're paying for the experience. And sometimes you sort of I'm very cynical about legal fees. Because of my background in how my first interactions with the legal profession, I'm probably very, very cynical. I think there's things going on that shouldn't happen. You're supposed to pay for the experience and knowledge of the legal professional who is dealing with your matter. So, your lawyer is senior lawyer of the law firm, and you expect that they're getting the work done. And, most of the time they are. But there's a lot of other things that sort of go on. And do you want this lawyer doing some of the things that, support staff could be doing? No, you don't, because he'll charge you at his hourly rate in 6-minute increments. So it can add up. But there's a scale of costs. So I'll actually make a note to link that, because it's really important to know, what can they charge. And I mean, some lawyers charge by the page when they're reading documents, so they will charge X amount of dollars. And if you're wondering what I'm looking for a pen. It's all good. I've got a bunch of pens here. Let's just see if I can find one that works. They've all been sitting there abandoned for quite a while, poor things. It's the 28th today. Into description. So I'll put the link into the description so that you kind of know what the sliding scale is for the legal fees that they can charge you. With the fees, like the costs that you have to pay to your lawyer and the costs that you can recover, they're two different things. So you've got lawyer-client costs and you've got party costs. And what you get back if you go ask for costs at in court, because you've won your matter and now it's to cost, you want to recover your costs, you can only recover the costs in relation to preparation for the trial. So when you do that, there's a process of where you go through every single invoice, and only the things that come under those costs counts, and everything else you have to pay for. And sometimes the lawyer-client fees can be really high, and you don't get them back. That's money that's gone. That's why sometimes I would recommend to any friend who sort of says, I've got this case, can I sue them? I'd really ask them to think twice about it, because it is such an expensive, long drawn out issue. Unless it's something major, I wouldn't be keen. And if you're getting sued, see if you can settle it before getting to trial, because the costs are they are prohibitive. We don't have laws for us anymore, really. I think it's more about rich people that can afford it, rather than what's really out there. Like, real issues may not be addressed because you can't afford it. Lawyers have got a list of red flags for clients. If somebody walks in and they want legal advice, if they find out that the client has had numerous lawyers representing them in the past, that's red flag, especially if none of those legal fees have been paid. The self-represented litigants, they're a definite red flag for lawyers because, you've either already put in documents and, you've put in a statement of claim or you've put in a response and you've put things out there that might not be able to be walked back. And by that, I don't mean, you've put out lies or anything out there. That's not what I'm getting at. You might have put in a defence when you've got more defences and a better defence, something that's, there's so much more to your case where you didn't know all of the aspects of the law because it's a real mess with all of the fidgeting that the government keeps doing with all the legislation. Some of the legislation has holes so big you can drive a Mack truck through them. And other legislation is just so dense. They've tried to cover off on every single thing and you can't fathom what the hell it means anymore. It just gets really difficult to know if you're being sued what the best defence is. Say if you've responded on your own because you couldn't afford a lawyer, so you thought, this is a simple thing, I'll just do this. Sometimes the lawyer has to put in applications to be allowed to refile the documents, which sometimes gets difficult because, each side's already accrued costs. So, it just adds more expense to something. And the court might not allow it. They might say, what? No. They had the option of seeing a lawyer earlier, didn't take it, bad luck. I don't know. Don't know if they would, but could easily happen. But with all of your costs, which keep accumulating, what are the red flags? So I was talking about red flags that lawyers have about clients. So we've covered, you've had too many lawyers representing you and there's unpaid bills. If you've been self-representing, they don't tend to like that. And some people have just got a really bad attitude. And some people are very, very aggressive. If you're really aggressive and you're not, you treat the receptionist like shit, I'm sorry, the law firm's not going to take you on. They don't care how stressed you are. They're in business where every client is stressed and every other client can keep their shit together while they get their initial advice. If you're going to be aggro, there was a story going around town that one of the lawyers was representing one of the bikie gangs or something and forgot to show up to court, and so the guy was convicted, I think. I don't know. I really don't know. I wasn't paying that much attention. But apparently, they got a little bit irate with him and he had to leave town. And you sort of think, they're the kind of clients you don't really want to take on. If, you shouldn't make the mistake of not showing up to court for your client. But sometimes things happen with calendars. People put the wrong date in, or, one of the things that does happen is now that we've got all of our calendars on mobile phones, I suggest there's a lot of people who, if they don't have the backup on paper and every other avenue, are really on top of their files. If your phone goes, you might, if you think it's the wrong day, if it's a different day, you might be in trouble. Thankfully, never happened to me. But, didn't have a long and distinguished career. But over time, I guess it can happen. And the lawyer can be in really big trouble for that. So, small comfort, but, there's the fact that it's not totally... they don't get away with it, is what I'm getting at. What other red flags might there be from the client? Look,
clients who can't afford to pay the bill. For many law firms, there are massive costs like overheads, just research databases, all of the fees you've got to pay, it just adds up. And I mean, you've got the building, you've got the support staff, you've got, the equipment, you've got the furniture, you've got the insurance, blah, 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 blah. It just keeps going on and on and on. So you need your clients to at least pay a fair whack of the bill on a regular basis.
So they're the red flags that lawyers have got about you. So what should you be looking at for with your lawyer? It's a bugbear of mine, but it's not a reflection on the lawyer or how they do their work. But I know that I got in trouble once because my habit was to have a really clean desk. When clients came in, there were no files on the desk because, you don't want your other clients' work sitting there on the desk, You put it away so that no one can see it. And my pet peeve is, you go into a lawyer's office and, all the files are on the desk and you can't see an inch of desk. Now, I'm looking at my desk here and I've got a really tiny, it's a small bedroom that I've turned into an office for me. There's bugger all room, the desk isn't really big and I've got everything on it. But in my defence, this isn't a workspace. When I do my work, I'll read in another room. I take notes, and then when I do work here, everything gets cleared off, and then I'll work. So, this is just the last 3 days. I really haven't been bothered cleaning up, what with, puppy having to go to the emergency vet and all the other stuff. It just, there's a difference between home and your professional environment. So it's my pet gripe. Would I say it should set up a red flag? It might show that your lawyer's a bit too busy, but lots of people thrive on being too busy. Make of it what you will. That one I wouldn't put into the red flag. I just don't like it. Are they doing it so that they look busier than they are, so that, you're a bit more impressed with how important they are? I don't know. You can take it for whichever way you want. A lawyer who's always running late, I would classify that as problematic because, they would get frustrated if you turn up late every time to your appointments. You have to make sure you're on time. Your lawyer owes you the same thing. I tend to, and I've been to a few lawyers' offices over time. Sometimes you go in there to meet with someone and, they sort of say, just come into the office and wait for me there. And you watch what happens, the way everybody interacts. And you can tell a lot about a law firm by, does the staff roll their eyes about lawyers? It happens. What are the personal battles going on? And it's just curious to me. I'm a people watcher. And most of the things you can put down to people being a bit weird and aggro and having a bad day. But when you hear a lawyer shout at a client and be really rude, might I suggest you get up and you walk out, because you don't want a lawyer to bully you. You instruct the lawyer doesn't tell you what to do, and the lawyer cannot bully you. It's just not on. Do not do that. I made up a PowerPoint when I did a similar live for the other channel that I'm not using because it sounded a bit too legal, whereas this isn't really legal. This is just sort of general chit-chat about the law. And, pulled up the part of the Legal Profession Act, the conduct rules, all of the things that the lawyer has to do. And one of the things I'd recommend, if you're going to need a lawyer, before you talk to the lawyer, have a read of the conduct rules. You don't need to read the Act. The Act's really long, but the conduct rules, that's not very big at all. And it's really good because, the lawyer is an officer of the court, so they have to be honest with the court. They have a duty to the client, and, they have to follow the client's instructions. And once you wrap your head around that they can't lie to the court, they can't put in dodgy affidavits, none of that stuff. They've got to follow the rules. And, if you're thinking that, this doesn't sound right, chances are it's not. But why not get yourself on top of, the conduct rules? Western Australia is about to go over to the uniform rules. So there's going to be a slight change, but they're very, very similar. When I studied it, I did both because the Northern Territory was already under the uniform law and Western Australia still had its own standard. And Western Australia is now going over to uniform law, so that should be good. It should be good going forward. But yeah, look into it. I always recommend keeping a diary. With any dealings you have with anybody, especially if you're going to, go and get a bank loan, you want to have a diary for, what you talked about. If you phone them, if you email them, keep a diary as backup as well. And then when you have an appointment with your lawyer, do that. Just keep a note of things, are there dates mentioned? Has your lawyer said, we've got to do this by such and such a date? Just be aware of it, that you're going to have to make yourself available in that time frame so that you don't miss things either. So other red flags. Cranky lawyers can be quite, normal. Because lawyers are people too. But lawyers yelling at clients, no, that's unprofessional, should never happen. If ever your lawyer yells at you and, tells you you're just an idiot or whatever, or tells you that, they can't follow your instructions because, that's not how it's done. If they won't let you, if your lawyer says, you can't settle this matter, you've got to keep fighting. No, you can settle a matter to save costs. It's as simple as that because you're instructing the lawyer. So there's sort of red flags you can look out for. Sometimes, people judge lawyers by how they dress and what they do, and I like to not do that. But in hindsight, I should have known that my first lawyer I had, that there was something a bit disrespectful about him because he just, he was unkempt and I think fell so far below the standard. I don't have a problem with lawyers who are occasionally dressed more casual than you might expect, because sometimes things happen, they've spilled something on their suit or whatever. It's not a biggie. For the occasional thing, yeah, it's fine. I've been in that position myself where
I spilled something and I knew I had a spare shirt in the car. But I got into work and I took all my stuff in. I was about to go back and get the shirt so that I could get changed. And, busy. So I didn't get around to doing it until, towards the late afternoon. And still did it, still changed. But it wasn't that I wasn't wearing something neat. I just grabbed a clean shirt that wasn't professional because I was running late and I just grabbed the first shirt that I found. But I had the spare one in the car anyway, so I knew I had the spare. But, it's kind of this balancing act. If I don't like lawyers who are show ponies, that's my personal preference. I want your brain. I don't care if you're wearing the latest fashion or not. Having a shiny new suit doesn't really do it for me. Sometimes, women always dressing like movie stars with skin-tight clothes doesn't do it for me. That's just me. I mean, I'm not into fashion, as you can tell. And, I haven't even put the makeup on today because I'm too exhausted. But it doesn't mean they're not good. It's not the first thing that comes to mind when I see people who spend an enormous amount of time on looking like a movie star. And by movie star, they look like they could be in a role. It doesn't seem genuine. Maybe. I don't know. Forget all that. Anyway, so with costs, sometimes your lawyer will say something and you might think, oh, that's a bit odd. He told me that he'd already done that, or wasn't that supposed to have been done 3 weeks ago, or, whatever. Something will make you think, oh, so what's this about? And, lawyers have to do their work in a timely fashion and they're not allowed to lie to clients. So I thought what I would do is I would just go into one of my databases that I've got, because I don't have much at the moment because, not working, so, I'm obviously not going to spend thousands on the legal databases, but there's some really good ones out there that you can access. And I thought, I'll just put in LPCCV. So the LPCC is the Legal Profession Complaints Committee, and then the V is, versus, which is and. It's, you don't say V, you say and. And then I thought, I suppose I need a name. And of course, by the time I'd finished with the LPCC, the database already spat out a whole pile of them. Now, I could have refined the search and gone down to costs where, they were reported for overcharging. But I sort of thought, I don't really want to do that much research because, it's time. And hubby's home this week, so I'd really rather spend some time with him. But I found a few of them. And what I did is I just pulled up a couple of them. And I'm not going to show them to you because I think that might be a bit boring. Now, I pulled up a few things for you guys to have a look at. So in Western Australia, how do you find if your lawyers had any strikes against them? If, do they hold a current practicing certificate? Have they ever been suspended? Blah, blah, blah. You can actually find it out. You can, if you do a Google search, sometimes it actually spits out the Excel worksheet that's got all of the legal practitioners listed and whether they're working, whether they hold a restricted or whatever practicing certificate. But if you look at the Legal Practice Board of Western Australia's website, they actually have a search function, so you can put in your lawyer's name and then search for them. Or if you're looking, if you want to see, well, which lawyer do I want to go with? I've had 3 recommended who deal with this. You can, look that up. I mean, is it effective? I don't know. What I sometimes do, and this is just because I've got a bit of a gripe about the legal profession, is I will look up certain surnames only to see, well, has anything come up? And sometimes it'll be surprising what comes up as you're searching for something else. So, and it came up again today, even though I was looking for something different. So there was a Legal Profession Complaints Committee and Bauer in 2017, and that was at WASAT. So SAT is the State Administrative Tribunal, which is the initial place because it's a workplace complaint, essentially. It's a professional. So, this case, which is, 122 pages, that's really weird. It's got something else in the side, which is also relevant to something I've looked up before. But anyway, this was heard in 2017, and it went into professional misconduct, misleading a client and misleading the court, and there's delaying incompetence. That's what this particular case dealt with. So then they refer you to the Legal Profession Act 2008, and I'll just get rid of this one. And so the reason I don't want to discuss the case, I just wanted to sort of go into, well, what is professional misconduct? So for that, you don't go to the conduct rules, you go to the Act. So the Legal Profession Act 2008, Western Australia, Section 403 deals with professional misconduct, and then it reads, shall I read it? Yeah, I'm going to read it. So for the purposes of this Act, professional misconduct includes unsatisfactory professional conduct of an Australian legal practitioner where the conduct involves a substantial or consistent failure to reach or maintain a reasonable standard of competence and diligence. And, so these are all and propositions. B, conduct of an Australian legal practitioner, whether occurring in connection with the practice of law or occurring otherwise than in connection with a practice of law that would, if established, justify a finding that the practitioner is not a fit and proper person to engage in legal practice. And then 2, for the purpose of finding that an Australian legal practitioner is not a fit and proper person to engage in legal practice, as mentioned in subsection 1, regard may be had to the suitability matters that would be considered if the practitioner were an applicant for admission or for the grant or renewal of a local practicing certificate. So it defines what it is. But of course, when you read unsatisfactory professional conduct, if the conduct involves substantial or consistent failure, so what does that mean? What does it look like? To reach or maintain a reasonable standard of competence and diligence. So with competence, are you capable of doing the work? And diligence, are you actually doing it to the best of your ability? Are you following up? Or are you just letting things slide because, who cares? It's a biggie. No legal profession ever wants to be done for professional misconduct. And one of the... You're kind of taught a few cases in law school
for professional responsibility about, what constitutes the kind of behaviours that mean you can't be a practitioner. So you may as well not bother getting your law degree if the reason you're getting the law degree is to be a lawyer. So people say, well, they committed murder, they can't be a lawyer. But murder and, being convicted of murder or horrifically child sex offences doesn't mean you're not a competent and diligent lawyer. So you can be a lawyer after you've spent time in jail for murder, because being a murderer doesn't mean you're not of good enough character to be a lawyer. I know it sounds strange, but I can sort of see that it's got to be in the professional sphere. Whereas if you go bankrupt, you can't be a lawyer. They won't let you practice. Doesn't matter why you went bankrupt, they don't care. If you've ever gone bankrupt, it means you can't handle money, so you can't be a lawyer. Any charges that have to do with dishonesty, because you've got to be honest with the court, honesty is rated really highly, but not highly enough for it to be, I was always told I'm too honest, so who knows. But honesty is highly rated. You've got to be honest with the court. The lawyers that have the hardest time with treading the line and representing their client are criminal lawyers, because in criminal law, if you know too much about your client, you have to report it. You can't report it because of confidentiality, so you're kind of stuck. There's a bit of legalese that happens if a lawyer, in all honesty, cannot represent a criminal client because of something, and it doesn't mean they're letting any secrets out of the bag, but they kind of indicate to the court that they can't represent this client. So, with much regret, it's just one of those things. The law isn't easy. I remember when I was in the criminal law classes, some of the students would get really upset because they'd say, well, no, if you've been charged guilty, and, why would any lawyer want to represent them? And they were all told, either go work for the DPP or go into another career, because, every accused person has got the right to be represented by competent legal counsel. Just because you've been charged with something doesn't mean you've done it. You've got, it's innocent until proven guilty, or at least that's what it's supposed to be, and then it's got to be beyond reasonable doubt. So some of these things have been, really punched up recently in some of the cases I've seen. But, it's doing our best, I guess. Civil law's a little bit different, because, sometimes what you might think you want to keep away from your lawyer really needs to know to be able to do the best job for you. So it's a bit different. Anyway, in this one, the legal professional was also engaged in misconduct in section 438. I wonder if that'll pull up for me. Sometimes it doesn't. So, no, 438. So the jurisdiction, that says it's the jurisdiction of the State Administrative Tribunal to make finding that an Australian legal practitioner has engaged in unsatisfactory professional conduct, and if it's completed a hearing in relation to a referral under this part, and, if the tribunal is satisfied the practitioner is guilty, then the tribunal may make and transmit a report on the finding to the Supreme Court full bench, or make any one of the more orders specified in sections 439, 440 and 441. If they do the report for the Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court can make the tribunal may, pending the hearing, order that the practitioner be suspended from practicing for a period, and impose conditions on their practicing certificate. So it's and they sort of say, where we can, where it's appropriate, a report forwarded under subsection 2A may include either or both of the following. So A is a record of the evidence taken at the hearing, and B is a recommendation that the name of the practitioner be removed from the local roll. So, sometimes they'll think that this is so bad, they need to be struck off. And that's a big thing. It is a really big thing. No one takes this lightly in the legal profession. Although, let me just close this off again. I mean, I've spoken to a few lawyers sort of at social dues, and that most of the really dedicated lawyers do tend to show up to these, and they do the whole mentoring stuff, and they take it really seriously. And then you're talking to them, they say, you always come across those lawyers who are a bit haphazard with it. They think that the rules are made to be broken, and they skate on thin ice, and they seem to always get away with it because they're counting on the fact that no one's going to report them, because most clients don't know that they can. And that was a real eye-opener, that there are those in the legal profession who say, we've seen some of these cowboys, and because we don't have any personal interaction with them, it doesn't affect us personally, we just see what they do. We can't report them, but nobody else is either. And, it's got to be pretty bad for a legal practitioner to be struck off. And a lot of them are given the option of, just not renewing their practicing certificate. It's, which isn't to say that, if you do happen to come across this, the Excel sheet, it says who is no longer working as a lawyer and who's let their practicing certificate go. And that doesn't mean that they were about to be struck off. It just means that they've left the profession. I mean, I'm at the pointy end of the stick where I've got to make a decision. Am I just going to give it up? I'm going to keep trying for a job. And I'm at the stage where I'm thinking I'll probably just have to give it up and move on to the next thing, because there's only so much time that you can spend on things. I've got to use my law degree, yes, but do I have to use it as a lawyer? Probably not. See how I go. But you really, when you're dealing with lawyers, you've really got to cover your bases, and you've got to cover yourself, and you've got to cover yourself by being a bit more engaged in knowing what needs to happen, what you need to do. I'm not sure if I've spoken about this on this YouTube channel and, the Bank Slayer moniker. I don't think I did. I think that was a couple of weeks ago, I think I talked about it. I had a client, and don't be like this client. He came in to see me. There was a really complicated twist to the tale, and I was given instructions. He said he would sign the retainer, blah, 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 blah. And I said, look, I can contact the other side if you're happy for me to just contact the other side to say that, we'll be dealing with the matter, and, we'll just get on the front foot and see if we can get this sorted out of court now. So he gave me permission to talk to the other client. He said, I'll have the retainer document back to you. And he did. He had it back really quick. But I phoned the lawyer on the other side, and, she was happy to settle it out of court. She was happy to agree to everything that the guy wanted. And I was sort of there, so how come it hasn't settled before now? Because, and she says he always agrees to it in principle. And he instructs his lawyers that that's what he wants. And then when he comes to signing on the bottom on the line, they can't agree because there were two of them. And there's the guy giving the instructions and the guy who's also tied. And they never agreed. And you don't know this. And then you're sort of there, look, they're happy to settle. It'll all go away. If this settles, everything goes away. There's no trial. There's no anything happening. It all goes away. And then it's, I had text messages and emails. I would have ended up being about 100 in 2 days. And it was just all the time, and more of the story, and regurgitating the story, and more of the story, and regurgitating, and just, and I've remembered this, a 3-line email, and it's like, what? And if I charged him the way that I was supposed to, it would have cost him hundreds for these emails, because he expected a response to every one. And, I'd just sort of say, look, let me think about it. And then another 5 emails would come in, and then I'd have to respond and say, look, in relation to this, and this. And it's like, I just don't do that. And on the third day, at 9 o'clock in the morning, on the third day, now, this was a family court matter. If you know anything about the family court, it's backed up a lot, and even back then it was. Now trials are like 2 years away. It wasn't quite that bad, but, it takes a long time for anything to move through the court. And he phoned up and complained to the boss that I hadn't solved his problem, and, I'm useless, and he's sacking me. So I got sacked as his lawyer after 3 days because I hadn't done anything. And I'd actually done everything to solve the problem, but they didn't accept it. They never signed on the bottom line to actually get it sorted. So can you please, for the love of God, not do that to a lawyer? Most lawyers will charge you the correct fee, and, it might not take them 6 minutes to read your email, but that's, that time has started, so, they're within their rights to charge you for it. So, 1/10 of their hourly fee every time they have to read an email. So be a bit more thoughtful about how you put your information together, how you put your questions together. Send one email at the end of the day so that the lawyer can attend to it the next morning and let you know the next afternoon. If you can't wait 24 hours for an answer, then you're not really coping well with what you're doing. Another red flag for lawyers is clients who come in the day of or the day before trial. They have to go to court for whatever. Don't do that.
lawyers are booked out well in advance. If you need a lawyer to go to court with you, get in touch with them as soon as you have a date so that you can talk to them before the date and they can say whether they're available on that date, and then they'll be there for you. But if you're looking for a lawyer within hours of having to go to court, that's not really going to work out well. It just doesn't work. And if you're leaving things that late when you have a court date, then there's this whole issue of, well, how reliable a client are you going to be? If you need to have documents signed by a certain time so that they can be filed with the court by the deadline, how are you going to manage that if you can't manage to find a lawyer, 3 weeks out from a court date? It's, if you're waiting till the death knell, how much of a pain in the neck are you going to be as a client? It's, if the law isn't easy and it's long hours and it's, complicated thinking on a lot of cases. If you've got a choice of 10 clients, you've got 10 clients and you've got another 3 who want to come in, and you're sort of thinking, well, I've got some that are really horrible and the relationship is really not good. You just don't want them in your life. It's too hard. Don't be the difficult client. I'll probably do a whole thing on how to be a good client for a lawyer so that you help yourself. The best clients are the ones that are on time. They provide all of the documents they need to provide. They're on time to sign documents they need to sign. They show up on time for appointments. They're just engaged with it. They ask the right questions and they don't argue with you that you're a dickhead. There's a way of challenging your lawyer's advice. Sort of saying, well, have you thought about? Because sometimes, being time poor, not all lawyers will address all of the things in the way that you raise them and say, the reason why we wouldn't go with what you thought, as in blah, 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 is because if we take that approach, then some important things fall away and we can't afford to lose them. Or, if we do that, it's really risky because of these cases that were decided on a similar factual matrix to your case. So we'd rather not do that. But a lot of time poor lawyers don't add that in. And you can't blame them. It's, to really help you. They also have to be very aware of costs and not spend extra time covering things. But you can ask the lawyer, just don't be a dick about it. There's a way of being polite. I think being polite has been, it's kind of gone, isn't it? It's gone by the wayside somewhat. At least I think it has. So, there's a lot to be said for staying on track. When you see your lawyer, the quickest way to save costs is keep the social niceties to a minimum. Because, a lawyer who is ill-prepared, sometimes a lawyer is ill-prepared not because they're slack, but because other matters have priority, because they're urgent. And there's only so many hours in a day, and, there's other things that have to be dealt with. And some lawyers, some people, let's not talk about lawyers on this one. This is a human thing. Some people have a really hard time because they think it sounds like an excuse.
And everyone says, don't make excuses. Well, sometimes there's reasons why shit doesn't happen. And some people are particularly prone to not liking to sound like they're making excuses. So rather than saying, look, I haven't really totally prepared, but I'm good at my job. I can do this right now while we're talking. Unless you want to reschedule, if you think that, this isn't really good value for money, I'm happy to reschedule. But I can assure you, we can do this on the fly, and I will write up the report give you the written reasons later. And most clients would be happy with that. Most people are happy with, yeah, all right, you've explained, something. But I know that there are people who, when they're unprepared, they're happy to just keep going with the chit chat. And if they can drag that out, because you've only got an hour, so be it. I've heard it happen. I've not worked with a lawyer who's done that. So, but I have heard of people who do it. Anyway, that's probably enough. So the reason why I brought up like this case, so when my tummy's going now. Okay, let's see. That's the Lego. That's the. Oh, I've lost the other page I was on. Oh, that's no good. I had pulled up another case. And it's gone. It's gone. Or is it? Ah, no, here it is. So, I found another one. And when you look at databases, the one I'm on at the moment is Jade. So it's jade.io. They have a free access, and then there's a paid professional membership that you can do, which just allows you to delve deeper into the research. I mean, if you're having to deal with legal issues on your own, it might be worthwhile being a member for a couple of months just to really drill down. You can also access Ausly. It's not a bad gig. I think there's videos on how to research for both. So you might need to go into YouTube or somewhere and, just do, how to research using Ausly or research using Jade. A lot of the universities, the libraries put out how-to videos, so that might be handy to have a look at that, so that if you need to self-represent, you can do that. But so on all of them, if the decision that you've got in front of you has been appealed, Jade has a yellow line across the top saying, it's been appealed, and then it gives you the link to the appeal. So I checked that. I checked, what was the result of the appeal, and the appeal was dismissed. So, or she wasn't granted leave to appeal. And in this case, it was unsatisfactory conduct, unprofessional conduct, and statements made to clients about the progress of the work. Were they knowingly false, charging for work not undertaken or completed, misrepresentations as to progress of work allegedly completed, whether dishonest, and practising while under suspension. So this particular case dealt with a lot. So the reason I wanted to just very quickly bring it up is because the result was that the practitioner was found guilty of unsatisfactory conduct. So I haven't read the whole thing, but if you think that you've been charged for work that wasn't done or it wasn't completed, or, they've charged you for doing the same thing 3 times and they've charged you a lot for each time, then you can put in a complaint to the Legal Profession Complaints Committee. Each state and territory has an equivalent body that oversees the legal profession. If you have a lawyer, always be aware that, no one's perfect, people make mistakes. Is it a mistake or is it knowing? Sometimes people get very comfortable in their job and it is just a job. And sometimes people think they're bulletproof, that, they can do no wrong and they can, do whatever they like. And then there's other people who are so aware of what the rules are and where the line is. And there are people in every profession who always skate so close to, they're just this side of being done. They're always just on the side of right. It's okay, you haven't broken the law. But it doesn't take much. If you're always in that area, it doesn't take much to actually fall over and, go the other way. Sometimes people aren't looked at until there's been a number of complaints about the same type of thing, and then, someone might say, oh, I think we need to look at that. Whether they do or not, who knows. All you can do is you can put in the complaint. And the last thing I want to talk about before finishing, because I think I probably shouldn't go too long tonight, but when you have your costs, now your costs are all of your invoices, it's, everything you've paid to your lawyer is costs. Now, some of those costs, as I said earlier, are lawyer-client, and some are party. So there's that. So if you get a decision handed down from the court that the other side's got to pay your costs, you've got to actually go through your costs and divide them up. You've got to go through, someone at the law firm will go through each invoice and they will say, this was not a part of the trial preparation, but all of these costs are part of the trial preparation, and therefore that's what you're entitled to. But if you've got a problem with your invoices in general, say, you've ended up paying $80,000 when originally they said, oh, look, it'll take $25,000, and you're sort of thinking, well, I've paid a lot of money for this and I can't see what the hell they did, and you're looking at the invoices and you're there, this sounds like, why have I been charged this much for that? I mean, it doesn't make sense. What you can do is you can have your costs taxed, and I think that is the worst term they can use for it, because people think tax, it's something to do with taxes. It's not. It's just, it then goes to someone official who looks at it and they say, well, that's far too much money for that. And that's where your scale of costs comes in as well. That, while a lawyer can charge what they like for their services, there is a limit to how much time you can spend on different things. Over-servicing is not good. It's frowned upon. There was this legal argument once about how much research does a senior lawyer need to do on basic concepts. Now, if you're thinking about basic concepts, the only legal research that the senior lawyer should be doing is, has anything changed in the legislation or the case law that we have relied on for years. And if there's been a change that has affected that, then it affects the way that you would deal with the new matter. But if nothing has changed, then you don't need to research it because you know it. And you might just refer to one of the more recent cases, which you need to read anyway. You know, as a working lawyer, you read the new cases that come out, especially the ones that change all of the precedents. You know, if suddenly something comes out and you're there, oh no, you know, that case that was decided happened after the matter with my client, like, you know, it was like a week or two in it. Theirs had already gone through all of the processes, went to the High Court, and the High Court's now said, well, you know, everything that went before is all wrong, and we don't agree with this, so this is how the law should have been interpreted. You know, that changes everything. But senior lawyers and all lawyers have to read the latest laws, the latest cases and changes to legislation as they happen. And if it's something that changes the way they've always done things, then they have to, you know, go with it. Have to be on top of it. Anyway, that's probably all I want to rant and rave about today. It's I'm not really happy about you know, just doing a stab in the dark and talking for hours on end and talking in circles. So if you're seeing this on YouTube, do subscribe, like, share. Definitely need more subscribers. I do intend to get back to writing about all of this and being more engaged with it. I've not really done much on this side of things because, you know, the Legal Profession Act and the Legal Profession Conduct Rules, you tend to worry about, if I'm going to casually talk about this stuff, am I going to be deemed to be not fit and proper? But I mean, I'm not rubbishing the profession, but I find it difficult with my background to really believe all of the fuzzy, lovely things about the profession. If the profession was as full on good as they say, then we wouldn't have so many complaints about it. And, you know, there's a lot of people who no longer hold the legal profession in high esteem, so we'll just go with that. Anyway, I'm going to go back to watching the Tube. As I say, it's late afternoon. I've gone for a little bit of time tonight. So, let me just shift that. Oh, what am I doing? I've got no idea what I'm doing, as you can tell. Yeah, we'll see how we go. Hopefully I will end up reaching some people eventually. I'll see if I can work on it and get it a bit more out there so that we do start having a bit of a chat and, you know, people leave messages, you know, just leave comments. Tell me what you want to talk about. I don't want to talk like a lawyer. I'm not interested. There's plenty of lawyers that you can talk to who do, you know, they do videos for work that are, you know, or, oh, we do this for you. Well, I'm not practicing. This is not legal advice. This is more, you know, this is what I've learned from experience, and, you know, just be a bit aware of, you know, how you put yourself out there. As a client, we've got responsibilities as well. I wasn't on top of things
would things have turned out better? Hell yeah. If I'd been more on top of things, we would have beaten this within the first 3 months. But I didn't know what I was doing. If I can just point you in the right direction, then it doesn't matter what court you're in front of about what. You'll be able to either instruct a lawyer properly, or you won't totally faff up being a self-represented litigant. And that matters. I mean,
I do want to talk about the things that you can do to help yourself, because I think it's important. I think it's important to really be there for yourself, be your number one supporter. And if you are seeing this and you're overwhelmed with a legal problem and you really think you don't know how you're going to cope, it's going to send you bankrupt, you don't know what you're going to do, can I suggest that along with all of the other things you're doing, can you please go and get some advice from a psychologist? Just go and talk. Get yourself a counsellor to talk to. Don't deal with it all on your own. And, I know people who've lost family and friends because that's all they ever wanted to talk about. Make it a rule to have a time out from all of this to actually live life. Because I can assure you, the other side, if they're professional, they don't give a damn. They've got plenty of money. It's their job. They don't care. They're not going to worry and stress. They're not losing sleep. You are. Their gut isn't churning. Yours is. So look after yourself. Really important. Always look after yourself in this kind of stuff. You hear of so many people who go through the legal system and they end up committing suicide. It doesn't solve anybody's problem. It just shifts it. And you're worth more than that. You deserve more than that. So if you find this video and you think, well, that's all fine and good, but I can't hang around to wait until she makes videos about what I want to talk about, get professional help. Now, I think I'm not sure if it's Australia-wide, but certainly in Western Australia, you are entitled to 6 free consults with a psychologist every year. Use them. Do that. Great psychologists will be able to give you coping mechanisms that suit you and your personality. You really, even if you just find someone that you can talk to, it's worth the money. Some counsellors don't charge a whole lot of money, but just go and talk to them. Not sure what organisations are out there that provide free counsellors, but it's certainly worthwhile. So, see if you can do that. As I say, I would love to have you leave comments to let me know what kind of things you want me to cover. I know that when we were going through our thing with the bank, it was at the beginning it was how can I refinance through someone else, and we could have done it, except things turned to poo. We were entitled to get some of the money out of our super, but that required a letter from the bank manager who never responded to my email, and then it said, oh, didn't know you'd asked. Oh, if you'd read your emails, mate, you would have known. There were lots of options that we had looked at that we thought the bank was aware of, but in hindsight, I'm not sure if they were. I'm not sure if our lawyer actually put it to them. I can't say whether he did or didn't. I don't know. He did phone me up one day and say, no, they're not going to let you do any of that. And I mean, we had a farm. We were happy to subdivide the farm that we were on to sell off a little bit of the land just to lower the mortgage. We were earning enough money by the time they took us to the cleaners to actually pay off the loan. So still have the darks on them for that. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
I'm going to leave it at that. Have a great night, and I shall catch you later.